So I'm going to rent a property for the first time. What is it that I need to know?
So a credit check is valid for 3 months. So if it is past that, you'll need to do another one. If you have any outstanding amounts, settle them. If you have any accounts that you don't use, close them as well.
What is the responsibility of the agent, and how do they help in the duration of the lease period?
Other things that they'll discuss with the tenant is the rights and responsibilities that they have as a tenant. Likewise with the landlord. If there is any maintenance issues as well, the agent will follow up, make sure the quotes are done, and make sure that the problem is resolved.
It actually gives the landlord and the tenant so much more peace of mind, knowing that there's someone that can look after everything on their behalf. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yay, thank you for having me.
I think you deserved a day out the office.
Yes.
So, Nikki, do you just want to tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're from and what your role is at Acutts head office?
So I am Nikki and I work at Acutts head office, and I'm in charge of doing all the rental admin at head office and for some of our agents.
Nikki, we'd also like to help a new prospective tenant that's going to be renting for the first time. What advice can you give them for what it is that they need to do 3 months prior to deciding that they're going to be renting a property?
So they would need to know their budgets, their income versus their expenses. They would also need to explore neighbourhoods to see which neighbourhood would suit them. They would need to know what amenities they would need around them, like the schools or churches. They would also need to save up for a deposit. Generally, deposits are 1 month's rental. You would need that plus 1 month's rental and whatever lease fees there are. You'd also need to make sure that you check your credit record. If you have any outstanding amounts, settle them. If you have any accounts that you don't use, close them as well.
I think that's so valuable because often we find, I think that we get a tenant that gets so excited about a property and it comes to the credit check and they don't actually pass the credit check because their finances isn't in order. So I think it's such good advice to give yourself like a 3-month lead up to, I'm going to rent for the first time, and you give yourself a 3 months preparation almost on the financial side of things. Also, can you maybe explain to our listeners what is the application process when you do find the right property? So I'm a tenant, I've gone on the internet, I've looked for properties, I've viewed them, I now want to obviously put in an application to rent. What does that application process look like?
So you would obviously need to speak to your agent, whoever you're dealing with. They would send you a lease application form. On this form, they'll ask you certain questions that we would need. You would need to sign it because that you would be signing for a credit check, which we do on TPN. And then would also require documents from you as well.
And what kind of documents would I need to complete my application to rent with, and what is the cost pertaining to these? I think that's also something that people don't generally know. Obviously, it's for the agent to advise, but if you can just give our listeners an idea of what documentation it is that they would need and what the cost would be for this application.
So we would need a copy of your ID and then proof of your address where you live. As well as 3 months bank statements and your few latest pay slips. The cost of this would be 150 Rand as an individual, and this really is that's what it costs on TPN for us to do it. It's not like we're making money off of it. Obviously, if you're doing it as a business, we require different documents, and that is at a different price as well.
And in terms of your application form, would you say it's also really important for tenants to sign the application, which then gives the agency the permission to actually do that credit check? So
we can't do a credit check unless it's signed.
Okay. Yeah. And then for how long is that credit check valid? Because I know what's happened in the past is the tenant has passed the credit check, but they've gone and viewed the property. They don't quite like it. Is it valid for a certain period of time? Can they use it, if they want to go and view somewhere else?
So a credit check is valid for 3 months. So if it is past that, you'll need to do another one.
And they can then take that to another agency.
You can use it with any agency that you want. It's yours. It belongs to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's also important to mention because we use an accredited credit application company like TPN that does the credit check. And I think that also gives us 36 months worth of credit history, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Great. So we also would like to know, I'm now a tenant, I've accepted, I've got my documents ready. What happens the day that I move into my property for the first time?
So the day you move in, your agent will meet you at your property. Sometimes the landlord would also meet you. It's always nice to have the landlord there and obviously create a relationship with them. What the agent will do is just go through the property with you, and they'll do an entry inspection. Now, your entry inspection is very important, and we use a program called Red Rabbit, which is amazing. It's very thorough. So we'll take pictures and we'll actually describe what we're looking at. So if there is any issues or something that maybe that's broken, then we will note it on there. Once this is complete, you will sign it as a tenant and the landlord will also sign it. Very important that it's signed because obviously when you leave the property, this all gets looked at as well. And then obviously your agent should also go through the water readings, electricity readings. If it's prepaid, just basically give you a run through the property and then they'll hand over the keys and remotes.
So there's quite a responsibility on the agent to actually make sure they educate the tenant on that process. Yeah. But I think the purpose of this platform is also to educate people so that they know what it is that they need to look for. Tell me, does the agent need to be present at the inspection or can it just be the landlord and the tenant? What would you suggest?
Agent has to be there. Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's your job. Yeah.
So a tenant should never do an inspection without an agent present.
Correct.
And on Red Rabbit, am I right in saying that the software is actually online on an app, so it's paperless, which makes it so much more thorough?
It was really amazing. You literally load, there's a template as well, which saves so much time. And you take pictures of floors, ceilings, lights, taps, cupboards, the lot. And it even includes garages, balconies. It's very thorough.
Great. The support that the agent or the agency offers during the duration of my lease, what can be expected? So I know, obviously, from being in the industry, we get a procurement lease, which is where we just find the tenant and the landlord manages. Yeah. And then there's also a management lease where we manage the property as well. So if you can maybe just give our listeners a little bit of an insight into, for either of those and for each of them, what is the responsibility of the agent and how do they help in the duration of the lease period?
Well, with the procurements, once the agent has done the entry inspection, the agent doesn't have much involvement because the tenant then pays the landlord until there's an exit inspection. That's when the agent comes in again and makes sure the property is left the way it's found and all parties are happy and deposits have been paid back. With the management fee, there's a lot more assistance. Number one, the agent basically acts as the communicator between the tenant and the landlord. So any queries, any disputes, those matters are dealt with by the agent. If there is any maintenance issues as well, the agent will follow up, make sure the quotes are done, and make sure that the problem is resolved. Other things that they'll discuss with the tenant is the rights and responsibilities that they have as a tenant. Likewise with the landlord. Lease renewals as well as market trends and rental values. That's something that an agent can assist with as well.
It actually gives the landlord and the tenant so much more peace of mind knowing that there's someone that can look after everything on their behalf. So I know we can talk a lot more about that. Yes. But that's really, really great information. And if a tenant would like to, a prospective new tenant or anyone really would like to know more advice or get more information, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can just call us at our head office branch. We've also got a website that you can go onto as well as Facebook pages.
Great. We will also drop that information into the comment box below. So thank you so much for joining us today, Nikki. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll definitely have you back because there's so much to talk about when it comes to rentals.